On my third day visiting the Wildlife Alliance field programs in Cambodia, we were in the Cardamom Mountains in southwestern Cambodia, set to visit Wildlife Alliance's community-based ecotourism project at the village of Phat. Starting at the riverside village of Andon Tuok, we boarded a small speedboat for the 45-minute trip upriver to Phat village. The river ride was smooth and the scenery pleasant as we were flanked most of the way by an endless, almost unbroken expanse of mangroves and palms. This is a bit deceiving, however, as much of the jungled area near Phat had previously been degraded by villagers illegally poaching trees for lumber and wildlife for the huge trade in meat, skins, and exotic pets. Along the route, we stopped at Wildlife Alliance's Stung Prat patrol station, where the principal advisor, Frank, runs 2 teams of rangers who undertake days-long patrols to capture poachers and illegal loggers. Frank is a former member of the German Special Forces, and he also did a stint as a member of the UN force helping Cambodia transition to a new government. Coming up is Frank, shown here in his operations room, and later, with me in my own unique uniform, down at the boat dock. Shortly, we'll be landing at the Phat boat dock. Community-based ecotourism, and that's CBET for short, the acronym CBET, was developed as a concept by Wildlife Alliance Country Director and founder Suwana Gauntlet. It's meant to be part of a program she describes as sustainable livelihoods that provide incentives to rural villagers to stop their poaching of wildlife and forest products and engage in occupations more productive for the villager and less destructive of the tropical ecosystem. Phat had been regarded as one epicenter of illegal resource extraction in the Cardamons. And here are shots of some of the Phat guest houses, which are a bit primitive for my taste, but apparently not for the young and the adventurous set, who were responsible for Phat earning almost $20,000 in 2009, a princely sum in rural Cambodia. And here is a shot of the brand new community center funded by Wildlife Alliance and its various foundation and individual supporters. It was designed pro bono by an architect and is a unique structure in its own right. And this is the project's talented and dedicated expat advisory team. That's Oran Morin, blue check shirt on the right, Wildlife Alliance's project manager for Phat. Oran is an Israeli ex-Special Forces officer who joined Wildlife Alliance several years ago, first as a principal advisor at one of the ranger patrol stations and later as the Wildlife Alliance staffer in charge of developing CBET. To his right is Amy Van Nice, wearing the Wildlife Alliance black t-shirt. Amy is Assistant Program Officer in the Phnom Penh office and was my trip manager. And the couple that sits second and third from the left are Danny and Ruth Goldstein. Both are Israeli forestry experts who run Wildlife Alliance's reforestation project in the area. The project is funded by Wildlife Alliance with the goal of replanting 4,000 hectares of land, that's about 10,000 acres, with 2 million trees in the Phat area to replace destroyed forest. Local villagers are employed to prepare the land, plant the trees, and care for the seedlings. During my conversation with Danny, it was clear that he exemplified the kind of person working for Wildlife Alliance. Danny and Ruth live in very austere facilities in Phat, far from any modern conveniences, including electricity, which is provided only a couple hours per day by generator. Danny told me that he had had ample, better-paying opportunities elsewhere, but was motivated to work with Wildlife Alliance because of the comprehensive approach to forest and wildlife preservation espoused by Suwana Gauntlet, Director of Wildlife Alliance's Phnom Penh office. As to the characterization Danny would give to the Wildlife Alliance concept in general, he said with some pride, "Simple place, simple life, big ideas." During my visit, we hiked to the local Bat Cave, one of the designated eco-tourist sites for the project. After walking out of the village, we crossed a small stream and then an area of degraded forest, finally reaching the cool Bat Cave after a long spell in the hot Cambodian sun. As part of the Wildlife Alliance program, the villagers of Phat are encouraged and trained to earn a living based on ecotourism, and with Wildlife Alliance and Cambodian Forestry Administration support, the village provides education and health care opportunities for children and adults alike. Because of its amenities and work opportunities, Phat has grown tremendously in size since the Wildlife Alliance first began its program there several years ago. It's now a thriving rural community. And this is the Bat Cave, one of the local eco-tourist spots where we ended our hike. There's also a beautiful waterfall located elsewhere, mountain biking, bird watching, and other sundry sports. By early evening, as we were headed back at dusk along a remote stretch of Highway 48 toward Tatai, the Camry died completely. None of the few cars and buses passing by would stop, and we were without flashlights as it started to get quite dark. Fortunately, our cell phones worked, and Amy was able to request help from the Koh Kong patrol station, whose team and pickup truck arrived about 2 hours later. Because the Camry had no brakes, we couldn't use a tow rope or tow chain, so the Koh Kong Rangers felled a small sapling out of the nearby brush and lashed it under both the pickup and the Camry. It worked, though not without some touchy moments, especially when the pickup rounded a curve, only to see the trailing Camry pulling abreast of it on the left because of the sharp turn. We proceeded slowly up and down the hills on Route 48 and finally reached the Tatai Bridge at around 10 p.m., from where I was picked up by the speedboat from the Four Rivers Eco Lodge. I was ravenous, and they had even saved me some food.